Hello guys, Burke here. This month was absolutely insane. From getting 6 new best runs, to the decorated version of Mercury being released to the public, to even Mercury getting an official verifier, this month is easily the most active month, both in terms of my progress and the level's current status. To put in perspective, I averaged 2 hours and 15 minutes of stream session per day for this month, and reached 277,118 attempts, which is 23k off from my expectations of 300k, but has some really valid reasons. The main reason my attempts are lower than I expected is because my consistency almost quadrupled in this singular month and made my runs longer. In fact, my consistency with the wave went so high that I was able to practice runs from the gate of entry and even from the gate of confusion, and as I said, I ended up getting 6 new best runs. This was something that I was never expecting to happen for a couple of months, but somehow it took me 2 weeks to get enough consistency to practice from the cube. And that's just the start of all of the things that happened with Mercury this month. Sit back, relax, get some snacks, cause we have so many things to talk about that even the word lot isn't enough to describe it. Now the thing I'm about to talk here is extremely dangerous for your health and can result in permanent brain damage, so I highly won't recommend you to try it at all. Matter of fact, this thing is so dangerous that even the Guinness Book of World Records banned record submissions related to this category in 1997. That is of course Gardner's record, aka the longest amount of time somebody stays awake, or in this case, the longest Geometry Dash streams without sleeping. The danger related with sleep deprivation comes from the extreme risk of permanent brain damage, cardiovascular diseases, and heart attacks, which make streams under this category dangerous for your physical and mental health. There are multiple streams I found that last hours, but the longest I've encountered somebody stream Geometry Dash non-stop is Zeronium's 24-hour long stream in 2024, lasting 24 hours and 4 minutes. In the start of January, I was desperate to get my channel monetized. In this case, the best starting goal for me was 500 subscribers, since it unlocked hyping and completed one of the 3 goals needed for monetization. In this time, I had just passed 400 subscribers and needed a quick way to reach 500 subscribers, which would have also completed the second requirement for me to get monetized. So on January 15th, I ended up posting this short. I've officially decided to beat the world record for the longest stream in the entire DD community. For 4 months now, I'm attempting to get progress on an upcoming top 1 named Mercury, with my longest stream on Mercury being 19 hours and 30 minutes. But I'm going to spice things up for my world record stream. You see, in order for me to get monetized, I have to reach 500 subscribers, on which, as I'm making this short, I have only 378 subscribers, so I have an offer to all of your viewers. If we hit 500 subscribers by the end of January, I'll be streaming Mercury for 30 hours non-stop. And on top of that, I will add 1 hour for each 10 concurrent live viewers on the 30-hour stream, in case if we reach the goal.
Subscribe to Vieric to make him suffer.
And by January 25th, I had hit 500 subscribers, which meant I had to do the 30-hour stream with 10 extra hour added for each 10 concurrent live viewers. And for an instance, at hour 5, I peaked at 20 live viewers, which meant that I had to stream for 32 hours non-stop. This is obviously way longer than Zeronium's stream and had only one difference. Zeronium played random levels for fun in his 24-hour stream. In my 30-hour stream, I had done nothing rather than eat shit and play Mercury. It had came to the point where my stream was so long that in hour 6 into my stream, Extra 8 Nuggies started streaming Angelicide, and he ended 2.5 hours later, slept, woke up, ate, and started streaming again on the next day, and my stream was still running. At this point, I was 32 hours in, which means I could end the stream, but I said, you know what? This X-Rate Nuggies guy is streaming Stream 50 on Angelicide, coincidentally with my stream being Stream 50 as well. I'm just gonna stream Mercury until he ends the stream. So I stood up awake for an extra 2.5 hours and ended up streaming for 34 hours and 57 minutes, which completely shattered Zeronium's 24-hour long world record stream. This stream was one of the most awful experiences I had. I've almost slept by accident during stream and even started hallucinating 28 hours into the stream. I had to drink multiple pots of tea and wash my face with cold water constantly just to stay awake. I literally felt that I was about to vomit due to how much tea I have drunk. However, the 30-hour stream, in this case the 35-hour long stream, had its own good sides. At this stream alone, I tripled my consistency to the point where I attempted runs from the gate of entry and still was able to fluke the entire way from there, aka getting 7 to 12%. 7 to 12 on Mercury at the time of streaming was easily the hardest run I've done on the level so far, being high tier legacy list difficulty at least. Even though this is technically a world record for the longest GD stream, I highly do not recommend you to beat it, unless if you want to risk permanent brain damage and piss me off for beating my world record. Rather than the 7 to 12 run on Mercury, I also managed to get 5 to 10 twice and 9 to 12, which is impressive because I do not have that much practice on the following cube section on 10%. I also managed to get a 1 in 500 pass rate on the 8% wave to the cube section, which was all the way down at 1 in 4,000 in the previous month. My cube pass rates also went up to 1 in 200, which is insane since I didn't practice the new version of the cube section for the previous month. There are dozens of other runs I could talk about, but in my opinion, they're not honorable enough to mention. On January 22, just one day after I released Month 4's progress report video, Quip made Mercury public with his unpreviewed decoration. This is most likely due to Quip getting burnout from decorating, and people that have DM'd Quip from my audience pressured Quip to the point where she released the level. I sincerely apologize for the pressure I've created. This personally has made me disappointed, since the level had so much more potential if the deco was hyped instead of being previewed this early. People now have an idea of how the rest of the decoration will look like, and that completely killed the hype of the level originally had. I obviously don't blame Quip for this, since she intended to individually decorate a 6-minute long level, but the level could have turned out to be more hyped for the final deco preview. After 7.5 months of the preview of this level being showcased, Mercury did get an official verifier. Before this, Quip was taking playtesting and verifying requests via DMs, with the only requirement being beating a main list. I took an alternate route and built a visual copy, and after I spent enough amount of attempts, which was over 190k, Quip decided to give me the copy. The original copy she gave me is the exact same copy as the one that is in the servers. I spent over 50 hours on playtesting, removing the deco to only leave the layout behind, and finally be able to play the level during stream without spoiling the deco. However, my version is different. The version of Mercury that I'm playing is significantly harder than the original version, and has a lot more buffs, with the most notorious buff being a 960 FPS frame perfect timing on 3%. To put into perspective how diabolical this is, levels like Aternus has a 390 FPS frame perfect as its hardest, and levels like Lightmare rarely pass the 480 mark. This level has a timing twice as hard as that. Quip, seeing this, most likely decided to make somebody else the verifier, that person being Laser. As you can see in Quip's recent post, there are a lot of misconceptions about Mercury, so I'm gonna clear them out. 1. Buruk isn't verifying Laser is. 2. This level doesn't have a 960 FPS frame perfect, which is true. The most it had was 240, and those have since been nerfed. 3. I'm decorating this level fully solo. If I change my mind, I'll make another post about it asking for help. 4. The level will be finished before 2026 ends, hopefully. I'm not very motivated to decorate at the moment, but I assume within the next few months, I'll be able to make decent progress. Mind you, when Laser was announced as the verifier, I had over 250,000 attempts on Mercury, whereas Laser had 0. Now, I'm not complaining, as there's another reason rather than me buffing the level for Laser being the verifier. Laser is currently way better at the game than I am. Like, miles ahead better. Laser's current hardest is Spectre, aka the 15th hardest level in the game, but Laser is more well known for his 39 to 100, 58%, and most recently his 5 to 74 on Flame Wall, the second hardest level in the game behind Thinking Space 2. My hardest on the other hand is the Medium Demon. It will take Laser at most a week with non-serious grinding to beat my best runs on the buffed version. If Laser verifies, it is clear that the level is going to be verified much faster. I absolutely wish the best of luck on Laser for verifying this level. If you're watching this, I do not hate you or dislike you in any way. When I started playing Mercury, I was aware of the risk of a top player grabbing the verification instead. I willingly signed up for this, and it is not your fault. Now, I had 2 reasons to buff the level to the degree it would be considered easily top 1. First reason, as y'all know, I want to beat the world record for the biggest progression skip, which is currently held by Risk, who jumped from Bloodbath Z to Firework. But there are multiple other players who did much bigger progression skips with actual good runs, most notoriously Herx, who jumped from 2-2 to Tidal Wave and got 44% on it. And there can be other jumps that can challenge the progression skip limits much further. If I attempted to verify the top 5 version instead, there will be no way for me to compete with Herx, let alone future progression skip players. The second reason, however, was due to the risk of other top players taking the spotlight as a verifier. I mean, if your hardest is a Medium Demon, there's almost no way for the creator to grant the verification to you, especially if the level has demands from ranked Demon List players. Me seeing this, I decided to make a completely different version as a precaution. So the level I'm playing and the version the top players are playing will be different versions, and I will still be able to continue verifying without getting overshadowed. This overshadowing thing did happen to me with Kyuki, which I did talk about in my previous progress report videos, and I was not about to let it happen again. The version I'm playing is the layout version, is buffed, is not in the servers, and Quip said that she did not save the layout version before starting decorating, which means I'm currently the only one with access to this version of the level. I'm currently making a redecoration to this version of the level, which will be previewed in a couple of months. Stay tuned for that. Ever since the Frame Perfect counter video was released, I buffed Mercury even further to the point where the first 15% of the level will easily be top 20 if it was a level on its own. Some buffs added include this spike added right next to this block, this saw added right next to this teleport orb section, this spike pillar, this pillar over here, the double spikes at this jump, remodified version of this timing, some saws at this section, an extra pillar and a spike added to this wave section, a completely remade section for 10%, this spike, this pillar being moved up, this blue orb timing getting buffed, and this spikes added to this blue orb section. There are a lot more other buffs added to the level, but those aren't that important since I'm not grinding or playtesting those parts yet, and they're subject to change. Well, out of 12 different lessons I've taken an exam for, I have failed out of 1 of them, which means I have to take exams for March as well. Even though it is just 1 lesson, that is still enough to excessively prohibit my streaming time for month 6. Not to mention that I have college exams on June, which can prohibit my streaming time even more. To conclude, I'm not going to be able to truly stream Mercury until I submit my college exams in the midst of June. However, I can stream Mercury for a couple of hours per day, at least until the midst of April. For my future expectations, I'm not expecting much since I have exams on March 21. My overall goal is to reach 350,000 attempts, average 1.5 hours of streaming session per day, and get 3 runs on 5 to 15 on month 6, which will allow me to lock in from 0 on month 7. I also expect a 5 to 12 run, as well as passing the way twice in a row or possibly more. If all of these expectations are met, it is very possible that I can get a 15% or even a 20% run by the end of this year. I'm also planning to do a 1k subscriber special if we somehow reach that goal. And no, it is not another 30-hour stream, but maybe I can preview some of the deco I made on Mercury or do something you guys suggest. Overall, this was an amazing month, both in terms of consistency improvement and amount of time spent. I'm expecting my exams in March 21st to overwhelm me a little bit, but I don't think there's anything rather than that stopping me for month 6. My consistency also brought some willpower back, which can definitely help me get better runs in the future. The only thing that backfired for me is that somebody else getting the verification onto their hands, which was something I was expecting and took precautions from before. That's it everyone, have an amazing day, and see you guys in my future streams and progress report videos. Bye guys! Tried it all, 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 tried it all. The danger related with sleep deprivation. The danger related with sleep. The most it had was 240, and those have since been bugged. So, the level I am playing and the version that the top players are playing. So the level I'm playing and the top version. So the level I'm playing and the version of the top. So the level I'm playing and the version the top. So the level I'm playing and the version the top players are playing. So the level I'm playing and the top version. There are a lot of buffs added to this level, but those. There are a lot more buffs added to this level. There are a lot more buffs added to the level, but those. There are a lot more other buffs added to the level, but those aren't that important since I'm not grinding or playtesting those parts, and there are a lot of other buffs added to the level, but those aren't that important since I'm not grinding or playtesting those parts yet, and they're subject to change. There are a lot more other buffs added to the level, but those aren't that important since I'm not grinding or playtesting those parts.